Welcome to another episode of It's a Long Road, the Rambo series podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me today is another guest host from another great podcast. Scott, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Pleasure to have you on, and more importantly, we're going to talk about your podcast, but you and your podcast are now officially a part of the last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network, and on this network we have another, I'll say this because there's the Rambo series podcast is actually, it's on its own standalone feed out there on Apple and what have you. Like, you can actually find it by itself, but it's also part of the network. So I think much like your show. So anyone that's listening to this, I want to invite you guys to listen to the network. So just Google Last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network. It comes up, and there's a plethora of shows on there that deal with all the action films, basically like the big names from the 80s and 90s. And speaking of the 90s, Scott, why don't you talk about your podcast and what you guys do on your show?
Basically, on our podcast, All 90s Action All the Time, we just look at various 90s action movies, and we just kind of go through the plot of each movie. And so it's a very simple format. It's kind of slightly changed from what it was before. And initially, we were kind of doing individual seasons on individual stars. So we take every Seagal film from the 90s, or every Stallone film from the 90s, or we did Kurt Russell, we did Val Kilmer. Now we're just kind of doing kind of standalone films. It's a little bit more sporadic than it was because it kind of got busy because I have another podcast as well. We are still doing episodes, and we've got an episode of Con Air coming out. We're doing the 90s Bond films.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of great stuff. So right now on our feed, if you're listening to this Rambo podcast on the Last of the Action Heroes podcast feed, you've seen Scott's show enter the network feed, and you guys are covering right now on the feed Seagal, which I'm totally appreciative of because we had a fellow join our podcast network to do Seagal exclusively. That was going to be his podcast. He was going to do Steven Seagal films, and we were really excited to have him on. But his show became basically, let me just say, it was a bit of a bust. It was a gong show, not very well done. I'm not going to lie to you. And then he just stopped the project. So it was kind of a combination like, okay, whatever. Being honest, it didn't work out. It didn't work out, both creatively for the network and what we kind of, hope for from people, and also just the actual reviews were actually very, very subpar. You guys, so when I invited you guys on and you started off with Seagal, I mean, I would say like I was nervous. I was like, how are these guys going to do it? I had such a bad taste in my mouth for the last podcast to cover Seagal. But you guys are really, truly giving it both the crap that it deserves, but also the praise that it deserves with each film. You're very fair with your review. You're very spot on with your observations. You actually give the movies an honest review. Like, there are an hour and a half to almost 2 hour long episodes for the Steven Seagal films. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, and I'm really happy to have you on the network. So please listen to the show, guys, if you haven't already, and especially if you want to hear people crack wise about Steven Seagal. And I'm looking forward to hearing the Kurt Russell coverage and the Sly coverage and all that great stuff. So welcome to the network.
Well, it's great to be on the network, and it's great to be amongst such a bunch of great action shows. I've been catching up with lots of different shows on the network and really enjoying what I'm listening to.
Yeah, all very accomplished podcasters. I mean, I'm the best, but everyone else is doing pretty good. So, I mean, I'm just joking. No, it's great having everyone on board. I really love the network. Okay, well, Scott, we're covering First Blood. As you know, you've listened to the episodes previous to this one, so you got a flavor for the way we run things here on the It's a Long Road podcast. What is your history with Rambo with First Blood, the film?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest Rambo fan that you're going to have on this podcast. As a Sylvester Stallone fan, I was always more of a Rocky guy than I was a Rambo guy. Mm-hmm. But I would say a couple of things. First of all, I think First Blood is an excellent film. I think it's top 5 Stallone film. Second of all, I have seen them all. And third of all, I do have quite a long history with the Rambo films because I remember when I went to a friend's house when I was about 6 years old, he put on a VHS of Rambo First Blood Part 2. That was my first action movie, my first non-PG rated action movie that I ever saw.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people saw in our age group, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but a lot of people in our age group saw Part 2 first. It was kind of it was like Rambo First Blood Part 2 was the introduction to the Rambo franchise, so to speak. Now, that's fine that you're not quote unquote a Rambo fanatic in the sense of you are with Rocky, let's say, I want other voices on this feed. I've invited people that aren't necessarily, in fact, my co-host on One More Round, the Rocky series podcast, Kyle, he hasn't seen all the Rambo films. Like, he hasn't even seen them all. So he is legit like a Rocky fan. He's not even necessarily a Stallone fan. He just is a Rocky character and the Rocky films fan. His coverage or his time on this podcast, he gave his insights as they were, but they're good. Because I want to hear people's different backgrounds. If everyone's just fanboying and slobbering over the film, it gets kind of boring too. I like to hear people's new experiences, old experiences, and whatever it is. So, did you rewatch the whole film before this recording, or just kind of the area that we're doing?
Because I hadn't seen it in a little while, I decided just to rewatch the whole film like last night. Yeah.
Well, how did it feel? How did it feel to rewatch it? What was your impression of the film overall?
It's a really interesting one because you always forget how different First Blood is to the rest of the franchise. It's way more of a kind of thriller than like a straight up action movie, even though there is big action set pieces, explosions, all that kind of stuff. And it seems very much of that time, of that early 80s, where it's before Rambo 2 happened. I feel like action kind of changed in like the mid-80s. You get 1985, you get Rambo 2, you get Rocky 4, you get Commando, and then that's really the big change of action. But this is the kind of more gritty. It's quite similar to something like Southern Comfort, which came out, I think, like the year before the Walter Hill film.
I have never seen that.
It's a really good film. It's kind of like National Guard guys, part kind of Deliverance film, but like more action-y. Yeah, it's really good.
More action, less banjo?
Yes. It's got a great cast as well. Powers Booth is in it.
Okay, I love Powers Booth, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of great old films that I can't wait to watch. I do a side project on the Last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network called Last of the Action Heroes Podcast, where I just kind of pick, I've done like 4 or 5 episodes only on that. It's just my own passion project when I have time to investigate sort of B-roll or, lesser known action films, especially from the 70s and 80s. Like we did like Burt Reynolds' Heat, for example. It's just kind of fun to see these films of old, of these older action stars like Burt Reynolds or Powers Booth or Gary Busey. Like I'm looking forward to seeing some of these other kind of straight to video at the time type films or low theater run type films. But anyways, yeah, so that might be one. Southern Comfort. There you go. That might be one worth investigating. Let's roll into it. You just saw this yesterday, so I'll ask you, what did you think of that Teasel Troutman kind of verbal sparring that they did with each other? What did you think of that sequence?
That is some of the best acting in the movie. And you can kind of tell that both actors are really stretching themselves. You can almost feel like the kind of competitive tension. They've both got these chewy lines and they're firing back and forth at each other. The interplay between Dennehy and Krenaz is great in that scene.
I didn't really say where you're from. Scott, tell us about New Zealand. And this is pretty cool. I've never podcasted with anybody from New Zealand. I'm 99% sure I haven't. This is kind of cool. So what part are you from and what's it like there?
I currently live in the capital city of New Zealand, Wellington.
Auckland? Oh, it's Wellington. Okay.
No, it's Wellington. Auckland is the biggest city in New Zealand, but Wellington is the capital.
Okay.
So both on the North Island. I don't know if your listeners might pick up from my accent, but I am not from New Zealand. I only moved here late last year in 2021. I am actually from Scotland.
You don't have a New Zealand...
Born in Edinburgh.
So what brought you from Scotland to New Zealand then?
My partner is Italian, but has New Zealand citizenship. Her parents moved out here in the mid-90s.
Okay.
Through her citizenship, basically, I managed to get a partner visa.
Okay.
And that's
it's nice there, isn't it? It's like, that's where they filmed Lord of the Rings and everything.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely is. Yeah, it's beautiful out here. It's a really nice city. It feels not too different from Edinburgh, which is, they're like, both of Wellington and Edinburgh are like cities, but cities that feel like towns, like they're just nice places to live.
Now, when you saw the scenery here this is actually filmed, as you heard, in British Columbia, Canada, what are your thoughts on the scenery of British Columbia? Is it similar to New Zealand or is it different?
Well, yeah, it is similar. I feel like there's a connection between Scotland and New Zealand and Canada. They kind of get bigger each time. It's like the scenery is similar, but New Zealand's, it's similar but bigger in New Zealand. And then you go to Canada and again, it's similar and bigger again. That's kind of my sense.
All right, so the scene that we left off on was Will and Sheriff Will Teasel and Colonel Trowman. And Will's like, okay, well, I don't know whose side you're on, but if you want to find him, let's go get him type thing. Okay, so the sequence opens up with Rambo in this mine, the shaft. This was a real mine, by the way. This was a real abandoned mine. This was not a set. And I love the sequence here, Scott, because he's actually... Look at that big pork roast he's got there on that stick. That is a lot of meat, eh? Do you think he's going to be there for a while, or is he just cooking everything just for the sake of it?
I'm not entirely sure. It seems like maybe he is cooking everything, just he thinks he's maybe going to be there for a couple of days or something. But the fact that he got this boar, he hunted this boar, and it's just... You do wonder how long he thinks he's going to be out in the woods or out in this mine shaft that he needed a whole boar to feed on.
I love it. It's awesome. So I guess it's better probably to cook it. It's pretty cold outside, so he could store it underground outside and pick away at it for a few days. So fair enough. True. Yeah.
State Police calling John Rambo. Acknowledge. State Police calling John Rambo. Come in, please. Acknowledge. If you're listening, Rambo, here's your situation.
Did I not go far enough? Wait, sorry. I didn't go far enough. We're right. There we are. My apologies. So now the sequence we're opening up with is this National Guard. Okay. So the National Guard has been called upon here. I don't know if New Zealand has a National Guard. We really don't have one in Canada. It's just... They're kind of referred to as the Weekend Warriors. You might have heard that term before. I'm not sure.
I have heard that term before, yeah.
I'm not sure, but even that's what they say in the States. But we have what's called the reservists up here in Canada in the military, and they're, they'll be a teacher Monday to Friday, but they're kind of called upon on the weekends to help out with whatever. They're the reserves, so that in theory, if we have to go on a deployment and we're short people, that we can call upon the reserves, say you have to fill in some holes, so to speak. But
So I'm not entirely sure about the situation in New Zealand, because like I said, I just moved here last year, but we have a similar thing in the UK. We have a thing called the Territorial Army in the UK, which is the exact same thing. People are teachers or bakers or butchers or whatever, but then on the weekends they go on exercises and stuff like that, and then if a war was declared, they could be called up along with the regular army.
Okay. Yeah, so the National Guard here, look at them, there's quite a handful here. I'd say it's, I guess, a platoon or squadron of people. I'm not sure what the number is officially to have a platoon or squad, but a good 10, 12 guys. They all got their machine guns and their helmets and their waterproof green jackets, and they're on the hunt for Rambo, which is odd to me. I wonder what their orders were that they were given, like shoot on sight. They're hunting this man. I wonder what the order was given.
I don't know what the order was given, because they seem to be very much on their own path, doing their own thing. It seems like they were kind of corralled, were on a manhunt, they were given vague orders, and they decided to create their own orders, really.
And keep in mind, these are teachers or gas station operators and what have you. They've never been in real combat. I don't think most of these individuals have been in any real combat.
Yeah.
Oh, there's way more. Look at the people over there. I didn't even notice that across the water in all this years. Look at all those people on the other side of the water.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Holy
When I was watching the film last night, I didn't even notice this, second unit, because you're so concentrated on the foreground.
You are concentrating on the foreground. I just saw that now. After all these years, some people, of course, you never noticed it. Oh, shut up. So, I would say there's 30 people at least on screen. Quite the army sent out here to catch Rambo.
Come on, move it!
I never noticed those. Holy smokes. Why have I never noticed that? That's funny, isn't it? Have you ever noticed all those people across the way there?
No.
That's weird.
No, it's weird. I think because the way the cinematography is and the angle of how it's filmed, you're just so concentrated on the soldiers kind of coming at you in the foreground that it doesn't register unless you freeze frame it like this and you're like, oh, on the other riverbank, there's a whole bunch of other soldiers.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a few listeners, if they go to the scene, we can't be alone in this. I love how one of the soldiers says right here, already you're getting an idea, they were not given a proper, I'm in the military, I'm in the Canadian Navy, of course, and I don't have any combat arm training. I have a very little bit basics, just because you have to know a little bit of basic about leading a section attack or what have you, but I know the importance of briefing. No matter what exercise, naval exercises, you have to give proper briefs, like what's the enemy, what are they capable of, what do they have, what do we have to defend ourselves with what these other, ships or submarines or what have you, or aircraft, right? The fact that one of these soldiers actually says, hey, this guy got a gun. They don't even know if he's armed. What kind of situation have they been put in? they should know everything. They should know, hey, he's dangerous. As far as they know, he's dangerous. He's killed a cop, even though that's not exactly what happened. But look, this guy's dangerous. He did take the police officer's weapon. He's killed dogs in the process with a weapon and with his bare hands. This guy's a killer guy. So the guys that go, hey, does he have a gun? They don't even know.
It's ridiculous. They've just been kind of sent out. They've literally just been told, there is a manhunt. You need to get this guy. He's in a mine shaft right now. And that's kind of it, and they've been sent on their way.
They don't even quite know if he's in a mine shaft per se, but they've been given, there is this machine, if this machine could actually triangulate Rambo's position with the walkie-talkie conversation. Like, they were able to pinpoint his location in 1982. I don't think that technology was around then with walkie-talkie pinpoint locations.
I was surprised by that when I watched the scene where Brian Dennehy's entirely confident of, yep, we've got his exact location.
And rightfully so. I think Rambo's surprised they got it. Because I think this doesn't exist, does it? This technology doesn't exist. But I guess it does exist, and maybe I think Rambo might be naive to it. So the question is asked, hey, this guy got a gun?
What was that?
Great musical score by Jerry Goldsmith throughout this film, eh?
Yeah. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith's great generally. Obviously, did, stuff for Star Trek as well. And yeah, so I'm a big fan of all of Jerry Goldsmith's score. He does add real tension to this moment of the film.
Yeah, great point. Tension in a part of the film where these guys are morons. So it's almost like the score is giving these guys more credence than they deserve. And maybe we don't know that as a first-time viewer until we see how they act later on. But still, I love how the tension has risen, but these guys are incompetent compared to Rambo's capabilities.
You're right, go. Which way do you go? Toss it across. Toss it.
Of course, for our listeners on our podcast, that musical change, I mean, if you're familiar with the movie, you'll know what happened here, but I love that musical score change. So you hear that tension of the hunt for Rambo, so to speak, just like Mitch said in The Forest, he goes, we're not hunting him, he's hunting us. And that's exactly what we see here, is Rambo comes out of the water. He was submerged in the water right next to them. They just went right by him. He comes out of the water. Yeah, he's hunting them. He's completely aware of what's going on. These guys have no idea.
Absolutely. Mitch is like a weird character in that he is a voice of reason, and everything he says, the audience goes, yes, you are correct. Like, he is hunting them. Yes, he is a Green Beret. He is super dangerous. Maybe they should call in the state troopers. But everybody treats him as just like a coward in the movie, of just being like, oh, shut up, Mitch.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. Perfectly said. I agree. Again, Jerry Goldsmith, that score change again of that chase type sound of, now this is like Rambo running through the forest, and that's what we're looking at now with that score change. So what's kind of cool here, what we're about to watch, is Rambo hears somebody else in the woods, and we're seeing a young boy, a teenage boy with a rifle. And we know they're hunting, and he's hunting here. Now, in the book, I want to say in the book, interesting enough, these are two people he doesn't kill them here, obviously, but he also doesn't kill them in the book, because one of the few people Rambo doesn't kill in the book that he comes across.
Oh.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, dear listeners, but I'm 90% sure, because I remember reading this part of the book thinking, oh, does he kill? So no, the hunter and the boy in the book actually gave Rambo a jacket and some clothes. They actually gave him some supplies and stuff to help him out. And it was mentioned in the book that the older gentleman or father or grandfather of the boy sensed in John Rambo a kinship or something. He was like, I don't know why you're on the run. I don't care, but you served your country. So he was like a restoration of hit points type checkpoint for Rambo's character in the book, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So it's a bit of a longer interaction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Now, let's see what happens here. So the boy comes up behind the tree, sees Rambo. Rambo draws his knife, sees that it's a young boy. What will he do, ladies and gentlemen? Let's find out. We know Rambo would never kill a child. The boy takes off, rightfully so. He's afraid. But Rambo takes chase because, he's a witness to this. So how do you subdue the situation?
I like how in that bit that you pause there, Sly does like a really good bit of physical acting there, where there's just this glance of real violence and intent in his eyes, but then it's like he kind of computes it's a child, and it changes slightly.
Very well said and noticed there, Scott. Love talking about it. Sly's acting in this film, his physical acting, it's a real thing, and we shortchange Sly, and I know we don't on the show, but people have, with his ability to act. He is a very physical actor. There's a real talent in doing a physical acting. Like, if I was on screen and they were like, hey, Ryan, look mean, I don't think I could. I don't think I could look the way he looks, that violent-filled face, and it changes to like, okay, well, I'm not going to kill this guy face. Like, all that very subtle changes, that's acting. Done very well by Sly in this film.
Yeah, I think I would be exactly the same. If I was an actor on set and they were like, Scott, look mean, I'd probably over-exaggerate.
Right.
I'd be like, look mean in the way that a child would look mean, kind of,
make a mean face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a skill.
That's why he's a multimillionaire, and I'm not, I guess. That's what makes him special. There's some truth to that. Not everyone can act, or else everyone would, or we wouldn't care. If everybody could do it, then nobody would care that you did it, if that makes sense. It would be fun to watch. Like, oh, look at that. Another person can act. When somebody doesn't act very well, or when a movie is poorly acted, and Sly has done poor acting. So when poor acting is shown, then it's very obvious, like, oof, that wasn't a very good scene.
I think Sly's very bad at hiding his emotions. In that, when we were doing like the 90s Stallone's films, you can tell the films, if you watch the likes of Cliffhanger, you can tell he's into it. But then if you watch something like The Specialist, you can tell that he didn't really want to be there. And he finds it impossible to hide how bored he is.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's a paycheck type movie. They kind of phone it in, sure, yeah.
What happened, son?
Over there!
I see him over there! I'll get him! I'll get him! Don't shoot! Cool down! This way! Let's go!
Those hunters, I don't think they're part of the search. I think they are just hunters in the woods. If they're part of the search party, it's hard to. Well, this whole search seems like it's disarray, because if they're part of the search party, they're civilians. That boy, but understandably so, he narcs on Rambo because he doesn't know Rambo from anybody, right? It's a scary guy with a knife, and so he tells his dad, right? Dad, there's a guy over there. But it doesn't make sense because they just say, I see him. And then he shoots his gun in the air like, hey, don't shoot, cool down is what they say. Don't shoot, cool down. That alerts to the National Guard that there's gunfire in this direction. So the National Guard now has changed direction to chase the gunfire.
See, I'm not entirely sure why they're doing what they're doing. When I was watching it, I got a little bit confused because the hunting party seems like they're just a hunting party. But the line there suggests that they are part of the group hunting Rambo. But both of those situations don't necessarily make sense to me, because if they are part of the group going after Rambo, why? Because we've already got the police, the state troopers, and the National Guard.
Yeah, you wouldn't involve civilians. It's just too dangerous. There's no point.
Yeah, why would you involve civilians? But then, if they're a hunting party, also, why? Because the police, the state troopers, the National Guard there, plus there's about 1 million reporters. Surely they would have cleared out the woods.
Or maybe they're overnight hunting for a couple nights, and they didn't have the cell phones or any radio back then. So in the woods, it is possible they were just out hunting. This is a bad place or a bad time to be hunting right now, because the boy didn't even say. Because either way, the boy didn't say that was him, Dad. He had me, but he let me go. And he also didn't say, there's a total complete stranger where I have no idea who he was, dressed like a homeless guy with a knife to my throat. Either way, the boy didn't explain what he just saw. Like, if I was the dad to my son in this situation, what are you yelling about? Like, it was unclear why the kid was yelling at the dad. Nothing was described to the dad as to what the boy just witnessed. And then they start shooting. It doesn't make sense. So either way, it doesn't make sense what the boy saw, because he just started yelling for his dad. It's a kind of a poorly written scene overall.
I would agree with that.
In fact, you've got one of the worst scenes in the film, and I'm sorry. This has been dumped on you. I've always said this film, I give it an A. It's a 10 out of 10 film. Like, I love this film. I love it. I love the film as a film. But when you break it down, there's some moments that don't quite work, and that's one of them. It's unclear what the boy is trying to tell the dad, or what the dad is aware of the boy. The boy doesn't give any description to what's happened. It just says, hey, there's another person. It could be just another hunter who's lost in the woods, and now they're starting to shoot him. It doesn't make sense. These are National Guardsmen. They're teachers slash corner store owner. Who knows? They've seen John Rambo running in the woods. There he is, they say. Okay, so they visually sighted, I guess they know what he looks like, kind of far away, and they start shooting on sight. So again, were they told to shoot on sight? My combat knowledge isn't the largest, but what we teach for us is there's 3 things you have to factor in before you engage an enemy. Proximity, capability, and intent. Yes, the threat triangle. Right now, Rambo has the capability to cause damage, i.e. he has a weapon in his hand. Great. But his intent is not there. His back is turned to them. He's not showing intent to shoot. And lastly, but he is close enough to cause damage. So he has proximity and he has capability, but he's showing no intent to cause harm. So the fact that he's running away, the fact that they all opened fire on that you'd have to answer to that. Why did you open fire on somebody with your back to them? Regarding that threat triangle, when I watch this, or when I watch any movie, when I see like a police firing or a military, I've talked to Doug about this, of course, the idea of that, is that a legal shooting, as they say. So I know it's an action movie, but this fact these are just National Guardsmen, they're so intent to kill this guy. It is, again, the direction of what they're supposed to do. Especially, one guy asked, does he even have a gun? Now, maybe they saw the gun in his hand, but that's unlikely. It's pretty dark. Yeah, they just start opening fire. You could just argue they're just not trained, and they're just trigger happy.
Yeah, you could argue that it's just like a trigger happy thing. Sometimes you watch a film and certain things seem character driven and certain things seem movie driven. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those scenes that you feel like it was just a producer was, oh yeah, we need some shooting here.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good point. It could be Rambo's on the run. Now, his life's in danger. It's more thrilling than just chasing him. Now they're opening fire, but Rambo escapes the weapon's fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that cheer there, the woo, that indicates, again, unprofessionalism and the idea they're almost like excited they get to fire their weapons at a person instead of targets.
Yes. Just later in a little bit, Brian Denny, he uses that term, weekend warriors. This group does seem that kind of thing that they like playing as soldiers. This is their chance to be quote-unquote real soldiers, and they're overexcited and they're stoked up on testosterone and they're very unprofessional and idiots, really.
And they're going off script. I think if I remember correctly, even though I've seen this movie 100 times, I just watched this scene like a few days ago to get ready for this episode. I think Teasel does say later, we'll find out soon, when he talks to the leader of this group, you were supposed to just spot him or something. So maybe they were told that they were only supposed to... Yeah, we'll get there. And I think we'll find out.
There we got him!
Yes, I know exactly where it is. Now listen to me very carefully. Surround the area with every man you've got, but don't move in. Don't move in. In fact, don't do anything till I get there.
Oh, so that's the part. So right there, they're getting clear instructions. So I guess you could assume they were told, and now Teasel did say the scene previous, when he was looking at that radar, he's northwest or wherever it was. He never did say it was in the mine shaft, right? I think maybe it was just Rambo's unlucky day, meaning he knew the National Guard was out, so he was out there looking to see where they were. He stumbled across the boy hunter. The gunfire drew attention to the National Guard, and they were that close that they were able to chase Rambo by foot, and Rambo then goes into his hiding spot in the mine, like his little area that he's made a base for himself. And that's kind of what's happened. So now they're saying on the radio, hey, we found him. He's in this mine shaft. And Teasel's like, well, I know exactly where that mine shaft is because Teasel used to hunt in these very woods when he was a boy. Yada, yada, yada. So that's where he now tells the group, okay, well, don't do anything till I get there. So maybe that's the part where he says later on, like, told you not to do anything. I still don't think the group was given any instructions before this one by Teasel.
Yeah, I don't think they were given anything prior to this.
Here's Teasel saying, okay, you got him, great. Don't do anything till I get there. Teasel wants to take him down.
And no shooting. I don't want him dead. I want him alive.
Well, that's pretty clear there. No shooting. Yeah. And this is almost like a comical. In fact, this whole sequence is sort of, maybe they wanted to break the tension a little bit in the film with a bit of comedy. Because he just says, don't shoot, I want him alive. Of course, the next scene, I'm about to hit play here, where the next scene is literally this. Now, so they are firing down Rambo's direction right into the mine shaft. Now, Rambo's very much covered behind this mine wall, whatever. None of the bullets are penetrating where he's hiding. And Rambo opens fire back at them with the weapon he took from Galt. I think we're led to believe that his shots are very accurate and he's only meaning to scare them. Like, his intent still here is not to kill. He's what's called a suppressive fire. He is pushing the enemy back, making them cower down. Because the moment they're fired upon, they all just duck. You could tell the way they're covering, it's out of fear and panic. And the way Rambo covers himself is just, it's like a military professionally done. Whereas they're cowering down, lying on their backs, and almost like in the fetal position compared to how Rambo's acting.
Because I knew it was specifically this scene, this part of the movie that I'm going to talk about, I watched this part of the movie closer than I kind of watched the rest of the movie, you know. I think it's a very odd part of the movie, specifically this bit we're just about to talk about. This is a very gritty movie. There's a lot of tension. This segment of the film is tonally so much goofier than the rest of the film. And even, I mean, you heard the machine gun fire there, but when they immediately do that edit of Brian Dennehy's no shooting, and then the first kind of couple of bullets you hear that are kind of ricocheting off things, that almost feels comic as well, because it's very pew pew pew.
Right.
You know, it's what we're about to get here in some of the lines here. It's kind of pure Three Stooges coming up. It's very different to the rest of the film.
Totally agree. Now, Rambo's run out of ammo, so he has laid down his suppressive fire. He checks his mag, takes it out. It's empty. It's an empty clip, and he's going to discover he has no more ammo.
Keep firing! Come on, guys, shoot!
Now, here you go. So, Rambo did that suppressive fire back. They don't know he's out of ammo, but they're recognizing this guy's not afraid to fire back. It's a whole different ball game when the enemy has a weapon. So maybe they didn't know he had a weapon. So they're actually firing on a guy that doesn't have a weapon in their minds. I think what happened here is Rambo fired back, and they, oh, he's firing back. It's like, okay, yeah, the kitten has claws, right? Look at these guys. They're lying on their backs, terrified. They do not want to poke their heads up again, afraid because they're going to get shot at. So the leader here says, come on, guys, shoot. And this is the part you're talking about.
Yeah.
Come on! You guys are great. All right, Steve.
Yo.
I want you and Bruce, head around these trees, go to the front of that mine.
Screw that, Clinton. I ain't going up there.
No way.
So he's telling them, you guys break away from this cover and go to the front of the mine and do what? That's a terrible direction. What does he expect them to do? In theory, he's sending these two schmucks to their death.
Yeah, he is very much the kind of... There's a British show, a British sitcom from back in the 80s, 90s called Blackadder. Yeah. One of the series is set in the First World War, and he is very much the posh British general just sending people to the front to their doom. This guy is a complete asshole. He wants to act hard. He wants to act like he's the big man, but actually he's putting other people in danger.
Totally agree. Him giving that direction, number one, it's not really a fair direction. Like, I don't understand what you want me to do. If I was the leader of this group, I'd be like, okay, it's one thing to send these two guys to do this, but to do what? What is their goal? Go to the front of the mine, and then what? Throw in a grenade, maybe? Suppress a fire back? The fact that they say no the way they do, like, screw that, it tells you that this National Guard and the way the chain of command is not respected. The fact that they can just say, I don't need to do this. Like, I'm done. I don't need to really be engaged. This is too much. We're gone beyond the Boy Scouts of this institution. My life's on the line. This shows you the difference between the National Guard in this movie. I don't want anyone to at me. But the National Guard in this film and the Green Beret of Rambo. Like, these guys are not willing to put their lives on the line in this situation. It's not worth it.
Raymond?
What?
I want you to go into that mine.
Oh, not me.
What do you mean, not me?
Look, I do this part-time. I didn't come here to get killed. Now, he's probably in there just waiting for us. What's wrong with you, Clinton?
So there you go. They just spelled it out for us. Like, they just do this part-time. I'm not going in there to get killed. Like, I want to watch football on Sunday. Thanks.
The way that guy says his lines, this Raymond guy, who, like, pops his head up. He's got his head on his helmet, like, his face planted in the ground, and then he pops his head up to say a couple lines, and then he pops his head back down, and he pops his head up to say a couple lines. Again, it is very comical, and he says all his lines in a very Abbott and Costello type way of...
Totally.
All right, Rambo! This is Lieutenant Clinton Morgan, National Guard leader.
I love the way he delivers his line.
Rambo, this is Lieutenant Clinton Morgan.
This is the way he says that. Lieutenant Clinton Morgan. The way he rolls Morgan. It's always got me over all these years. Now, this guy's name, this actor's name, his name is Patrick Stack. I reached out to him. I wanted to get him on the show. No offense to Patrick Stack, but like, come on, dude. And so no response, which is fine. But he's like runs an acting school in LA or something like that. And I actually reached out to him via his company's site. No response. Anyways, well, those who can't do, teach, right?
National
what they
Guard
say.
leader, I'm giving you just 30 seconds to come on out.
Now, that's the most military thing he did there by saying 30 instead of 30. That's what we do in the military. 30. Yeah, so that's the most military thing he's done this whole segment properly.
Who's got the rocket launcher?
Now that part, okay, this is really kind of the worst part. Who's got the rocket launcher? Now, we didn't see anyone running around with a rocket launcher on their back, but I guess someone did carry one up. Is that standard operating procedures to carry a rocket launcher with the National Guard hunting one person?
Yeah, I didn't get this either. Everything else got weight to it. I had forgot this part of the movie altogether. I guess you remember all the kind of most famous parts of the movie. Even Rambo getting up from the river like that, and they drew first blood, and the monologue at the end, and some of the action explosions and stuff like that. But this part of the movie, it completely passed me by. I completely forgot about it. And I was really surprised at how Looney Tunes it gets here.
Yeah, who's got the rocket launcher? And here we go. We'll find out.
Come here, Earl. Great. Rambo, it's your last chance to come out.
Maybe we should wait.
Earl, this creep is a killer. Besides, I'm in charge, and I say we blow it up. Now fire that thing.
This creep is a killer, and I'm in charge, and I say we blow it up. And then he goes, just let me get out of the way first. So yeah, this is what I mean. It's kind of like, what is going on here? Like a rocket launcher, that's a pretty serious business. The guy's like, maybe should we wait for somebody who's more in charge than you?
Yeah, this guy is clearly nominally in charge. He's in charge of weekend exercises. He's never done an operation like this before, it's very clear. Yeah, they should be hanging back, waiting for at least Teasel, if not state troopers or proper military troutmen. He's clearly weighing us over his head, and he's just, what are we going to do? We're going to blow him up now.
Yeah.
You get out of the way first.
Yeah!
Give that man a cigar!
Bullseye!
Give that man a cigar. Who, the bazooka shooter, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. That's the only person that I can think that he's giving the cigar to.
And then on top of that, the explosion is a little bit unrealistic. I'm not a bazooka expert, but didn't that seem like a pretty high or a lot of volume of explosion for one rocket? We called it a rocket launcher. We call it bazookas as well, I think, but...
I'm not in the military. I've never even been in the Territorial Army or anything. I've never seen a rocket launcher in real life and the damage of a rocket launcher in real life. But that did seem like a massive explosion, way bigger than I would assume that one rocket would set off.
Where the hell are they? Up the hill about 500 yards.
So it's interesting there. So the Teasel, Troutman, and the state police captain have landed. They got there via helicopter really quickly. Where are they? They're up there about 500 yards, and they're all saluting Colonel Troutman. Now, I know the National Guard. I guess it's fair to salute the colonel. I just find it surprising they're even doing that. The National Guardsmen, that these guys are even on top of it enough to know to salute this guy, if that makes sense.
Move in a little closer, just like Iwo Jima.
I don't believe it. Idiots.
Steady? Got it.
All right, Nick, one more for Soldier of Fortune.
Soldier of Fortune?
Yeah, I don't know. Damn it, what the hell do you think this is, some kind of a circus?
Now, Teasel, rightfully so, is extremely pissed off. This is kind of ridiculous. As far as they think, they've just killed a man. And they're just thrilled by this idea that they're now recreating Iwo Jima's famous photo there of the soldiers lifting up the flag, and they got a piece of lumber instead.
Yeah, this is further proof that these guys are idiots. Yeah, I guess that Soldier of Fortune is like a magazine or something.
I think so. I don't know it any more than you do, really, but I would assume it's kind of like the Sports Illustrated of Army magazines back in the day. You know, they probably had the latest weapons and technology of the Army and what have you, and kind of like promotes the military. So they're thinking, hey, we're going to be on the cover of Soldier of Fortune. They're actually believing their own hoopla.
Yes.
We're going to be on this cover. Look, let's get this photo taken. And Teasel comes in. Is this some kind of circus? Which is a Fair question.
Pretty much the only part of the movie where you can be fully on Teasel's side of this. I feel like you are entirely correct here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Get the hell out of here!
Clinton, Jesus.
Didn't you get the word, Clinton? I told you people to wait until I got up here.
Well, he was shooting at us, Will. Come on, I wasn't taking any chances.
Well, that's a fair argument. They were shot at. Granted, Rambo purposely missed them, but that's fair. We weren't going to take any chances. Even though the direction might have been, don't kill him, I don't want him dead, I would say you have every right to defend yourself. Granted, they shouldn't have shot first, but Rambo actually shot second. National Guard are drawing first blood, not Rambo. Rambo rarely draws first blood at all in this film, right? So it's everybody else that's drawing it.
It's not really a fair argument because you get the scene of Teasel on the radio and then it cuts to them firing and then Rambo fires back. They actually got the order before, the way we watched the film anyway, they got the order before you're actually seeing them shoot on the mine shaft. And also they were shooting at him before that as well, like when he was running through the woods.
Yeah, they were told not to shoot, period. No shooting. And of course, they kept shooting.
Christ, what a mess. Gonna have to dig his body out of there right away.
I mean, you can't get a dozer up here. You're going to have to find somebody to dig him out.
Well, it's your mess, Clinton. You clean it up.
Will, come on. I got to be back at the drugstore tomorrow.
And you better get started right away, Clinton.
I'm surprised about how much authority... What I love is this is some small town in Hope, Washington, is where it's supposed to be in the film. And these guys are all on first-name basis. Teasel's first-name basis with the state captain. He's on first-name basis with the platoon leader of this National Guard. And so I'm just surprised how many members of the National Guard work in this town. 30 alone are just able to come on call for this event.
Yeah, because it seems like a relatively small town. It doesn't look any bigger than my hometown. My hometown of Haddington, just outside of Edinburgh, just under 10,000 people. And it looks like this is a kind of town that has maybe like a similar population. So for it to have a police force plus several members of the National Guard, it just seems, a bit implausible.
We'll end it there, because the next episode will deal with Rambo's traveling through the mine and some more talk between Teasel and Colonel Trautman regarding possible death of Rambo. As far as Teasel is concerned here, he believes Rambo's dead. He actually believes he's dead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Much to his disappointment.
So, what did you think of your first experience there on the Rambo series podcast, Scott?
I very much enjoyed coming on. I hope you can have me on again for other Rambo films. I guess that my podcast, All 90s Action All the Time, has like a kind of goofy sense of humour, so it seems only appropriate that I come in probably the oddest and goofiest scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's a good point. It really is, because at this point, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen the film, the next part is him really just getting to the mine, escaping the mine, and really heading to town. So it's all serious, absolutely, from this point on. There's no more... It's kind of just over halfway through the film, so I wonder if that was... obviously it was intentional. It was edited accordingly. I don't know if it's effective. And it was the 80s, so maybe they just felt there was a little bit of a... We kind of needed a bit of a comedic beat, maybe, to break the tension before things go to crap again for the characters at the end of the film.
I mean, sometimes if a film is pretty dark, sometimes they throw in kind of comic scenes occasionally. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it can work. It reminded me of, and this is an even more extreme example, Wes Craven's debut film, Last House on the Left, which is a very dark, intense horror movie that has these scenes with these kind of comedy cops that seem like straight out of like Smokey and the Bandit or something. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that, although that is... The tonal shift in that film is even more extreme than what we've just talked about here.
Well, before we close, Scott, there's just a couple of emails, if you don't mind just joining in on that discussion before we close here. Okay. We got a couple of YouTube comments. Okay, so this is from Miguel on our YouTube channel. So if you actually want, you can leave comments on our YouTube audio versions of these things. That's totally fine. This is Miguel responding to Adrian from Arcade Attack when he joined the show. He says it's great hearing us together again, because he and I have done a couple of shows on the Rocky episode. And he just wanted to talk about how when Rambo took out the policemen one at a time, it really showed the efficient killer that he can be, and how he spared all of them. And he said here that he loved the analogy of Rambo playing chess while the cops are playing checkers. And Brian Dennehy was so great when Rambo held that knife to Will's throat. I especially love how Will broke down in tears, showing that he is a human and very fallible. I don't think I've ever been disappointed in a movie with Brian Dennehy in it. I'm truly enjoying this wonderful long road. Thanks for doing what you do, Ryan. So thanks, Miguel. That's a very kind words, obviously, from you. If you want to send us an email, our email is, and it's also in the show notes if you want to look, it's ramboseriespodcast@gmail.com. This is from John. It says, Dear Ryan, I've enjoyed episodes 1 through 6 of the Long Road podcast and be interested in being a guest on your show. That is if production is still underway. Yes, John, production is still underway. I will say, John, that most of my guests for the season are lined up right now, the guest hosts. But John goes on to say right now that he would like to come on the show because he is a student of film. I'm not too sure what that means, to be honest with you. But and he's also a psychologist, which I do know what that means. And he's a big fan of the Rambo series. So he would like to come on and add some interesting comments about the film itself and Rambo's character. That would be kind of interesting. John, let me get in touch with you via email to see what we can do regarding that, because you being a psychologist, it might be interesting to hear how PTSD or Rambo's actions, and even Dennehy's Will Teasel's actions. Yeah, it'd be interesting hearing how maybe David Morrell, what he got right about these characters regarding the way the brain works. That'd be interesting to hear. So John, stand by for an email on that. Well, that's it for emails. I love hearing from you guys and the YouTube comments. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're an absolute joy to have, but I hate to tell you, the episode is over.
Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.